Welcome to City Cinematheque, where the art and pleasure of the movies are the subject of serious discussion. I'm your host, Jerry Carlson, and I teach film studies at the City College of the City University of New York. Today, it's our pleasure to present the 1941 American film, Meet John Doe, directed by Frank Capra, written by Robert Riskin, and starring Gary Cooper and Barbara Stanwyck. This has always been a controversial film. It's a film that includes the idea of a military, or shall we say, industry coup within the United States. It's also a film that's highly critical of the American media. It also represents Frank Capra's notions about American populism and its strengths. It's even more a film that has a controversial ending. As you'll see, there's a lot to talk about, and we'll have 30 minutes in which to do so after today's screening. It's a pleasure to welcome back to City Cinematheque the distinguished American director, Peter Bogdanovich, also known as an author and film historian. Now, take this opportunity to enjoy the many pleasures of one of Frank Capra's most distinguished films, Meet John Doe. Welcome back to City Cinematheque, you, the American people. So we have 30 minutes in which to talk about this extraordinarily rich, beautifully crafted, but in many ways contradictory film. I can think of no better guide to this sort of thing than our guest today. It's a pleasure to welcome back to City Cinematheque Peter Bogdanovich, himself known as a distinguished American director, actor, author, and film historian. Welcome back to City Cinematheque, Peter.
Thanks, Jerry. Nice to see you again.
Great. Let's talk about, let's start with Capra. As just in general, he's a magisterial kind of figure from the 1930s and the 1940s.
And he started in comedies in the 20s.
Absolutely, that's
and made silent pictures, which people forget.
Right. Let's talk about how you get from being the child of Sicilian immigrant parents to being, the president of the Directors Guild. Arguably one of the most honored of all, and justly so, American directors, and a significant public presence as a director in the 30s and the 40s. What was that trajectory like for Capra?
Well, it was very interesting. I mean, he had a flair for comedy, which he showed in his early pictures in the 20s. And I think the first two pictures he directed were both with Harry Langdon, who was one of the, at that time, considered one of the great American comedians. He was right up there with Harold Lloyd and Buster Keaton and Charlie Chaplin. His star has faded,
right, and
very few people remember Harry Langdon, because in fact he only made arguably 3 good pictures, 2 of them directed by Capra. And then I think he got a little put out that Capra was getting too much credit and fired him, and the last one wasn't as good. But the 2 were The Strong Man and Long Pants. And I think Capra learned some things from Langdon and helped Langdon. He certainly had an understanding of comedy and pacing and speed and a certain unpretentious quality. I was struck seeing some of the early Capras that I hadn't seen, like The Matinee Idol, which is a silent film that just was found not too long ago.
Right.
How his speed, his energy, that Capra-esque kind of energy was there right from the beginning.
Ah, okay.
And arguably he was making screwball comedies almost before anybody, because he was doing them in the silent era.
Right.
And then in the early talkies, he didn't for a while make really comedies until suddenly he made a picture called It Happened One Night, which was really probably the sleeper of all time. Nobody expected that picture to be particularly successful. Gable felt like he was being punished by being in it. Claudette Colbert didn't like it. They shot it in 5 weeks. They thought it was a real quickie.
Yeah.
And it became an overnight sensation with the public. And I think it won the 5 major Oscars that year, and catapulted Capra from being a respected and reliable studio director at Columbia. Columbia was hardly a studio. It was at the lower end of the echelon of studios, called Gower Gulch, because it was on Gower Street in Hollywood. And it suddenly, really, Capra made it a major studio. And Cohen, Harry Cohen, who ran Columbia and owned it, was wise enough to let Capra have his head. There's a marvelous story about when Capra went to see Cohen, walked into his office. This is after he'd had, not just, it happened one night, but then Mr. Deeds Goes to Town and Mr. Smith Goes to Washington and so on. Hits, you know.
Right.
And he walked into the office and said, Harry, I've got a problem. I don't know what to do about... Shut up, wait a second. Cohen interrupted him. I don't want to hear another word. If you don't know something, it makes me nervous. Get the hell out of here. You know, it's marvelous. Give him that kind of faith. But Capra had an uncanny ability to really capture the essence of a particular star. Hawks had that ability too, and Capra had it, to bring out kind of what was most like that star.
Right.
He did it with Cooper in Mr. Deeds Goes to Town, which probably was the archetypal Cooper picture in its day. And he did it with Jimmy Stewart, memorably, in Mr. Smith Goes to Washington, and then later with It's a Wonderful Life. I believe this film, Meet John Doe, was Capra's second picture with Cooper. And again, it really kind of crystallizes, synthesizes what Cooper was. In a way, even more so than Mr. Deeds Goes to Town. I like Mr. Meet John Doe actually somewhat better. I know it's heresy, but I like it somewhat better than
And you
Mr.
committed it here on camera.
On camera. I rather like it a little bit better than Mr. Deeds, which I think dates a little bit more than this one. My parents, who were both European and had come here to America really knowing that World War II was imminent, sensing it, and they always referred to Mr. Deeds Goes. They always referred to Meet John Doe as an anti-fascist film, and a great American, a great piece of Americana.
Yes.
In fact, I remember my parents, one of the first directors whose name I ever heard was Frank Capra. Frank Capra, John Ford. My parents liked Americana, and those two directors certainly did some of the greatest, what we call Americana.
Well, one of the things that's very interesting as a contrast between the two directors is that, of course, Ford was, arguably the supreme master of creating a film mythology of the American American past. I mean, preeminently in the Western. So so many of us have a notion of 19th century America that emanates from those. Whereas Capra was so much, like Hawks in a number of his pictures, caught up in the speed and the vitality of 20th century American culture.
Particularly the 30s somehow.
Absolutely the case, yeah.
You feel that so much. But there's a kind of an America that comes out of the Capra pictures.
Yes, indeed.
That I think was synthesized by something John Cassavetes said. I love this remark. He said, maybe there never was an America. Maybe it was all Frank Capra. Isn't that wonderful?
No, I think that's an extraordinary quotation.
Very accurate somehow. And John Cassavetes, of course, who you'd think of as being the most anti-Capra of directors, but he loved Capra because certainly John's movies were anything but Capra-esque.
But there is something. If I had to pull it together, it would be one. They're both obsessed with what is America. They may be very different interpretations, but also Capra and with the great work he did with different screenwriters, in this case Robert Riskin, was really very interested in the texture of American English. You know?
Oh yes, that was very. He understood the idiom and captured that awfully well.
And it's interesting your remark about your parents, because I've had the pleasure of reading in the diaries or the commentaries of European, particularly British, to be sure, because of the language, intellectuals from the period of the 30s and the 40s, and whatever they thought of Capra's politics. It's very interesting that there's all this talk about, oh, let's go to see the new American film, because of the fascination with the notion that American character is somehow revealed through this extraordinary uses of language, which is very, very far from, a British theatrical tradition, maybe very close to our theatrical tradition. But the notion of a vernacular American English and what it can tell you about this kind of society is something that really holds up today when you're watching Meet John Doe. I mean, you have
it's very much there. It's that speed again, that energy, the speed of it, the movement of it. I once asked Capra about speed in movies and pacing.
Right.
And this is Meet John Doe, I suppose is really a drama. It has a comedy flavor to it, and it has comedy timing, but essentially it's a dramatic story. Guy's going to commit suicide, supposedly. It's all a sham. Or it could be referred to, as I guess it was in its earliest days, a comedy drama.
Right.
My favorite kind of movie nobody makes anymore. They call it a dramedy or something. I hate that.
Yeah.
But anyway, I asked him about speed in movies, and he said, well, if you play something, I could do a Capra impression, but it might take a year, because he talked like this. Well, if you play something, if you play it normal, it'll seem slow, and that's how he talked. So I'll cut out the pauses, but he was very looking for the word,
and intense. I mean,
and very intense, very intense. Anyway, he said if you play something normal speed, just the way you would in life, on the screen, it'll seem slow. If you play it at faster than normal speed, it'll seem normal. So if you start playing it faster than that, is when you start getting faster, when it starts seeming fast. And so, it's true, something about film slows things up. So you really have to go faster, way faster than normal, for it to seem fast. And the energy and the pace of Meet John Doe, or any of his films really, it has that comedy, what I call comedy pacing. Even in a dramatic situation, it's fast. And he always has humor there, which I noticed, this was the great thing about American movies, that they had an ability to play to the whole family, without ratings, without having to cut away or, hide things. There was nothing obscure. They had an ability to play to every member of that audience and every member of that family, whether it was kids or grown-ups, that's something that's been lost. They didn't make niche movies, the movies were for everybody. And I noticed the Capra's comedy, like the guy writing the name on the door, you remember?
Indeed.
And that's paid off 3 times. Each time it gets, and finally that's comedy, but again, setting up a joke and then paying it off. That's the kind of comedy training that Capra came out of, which informs his dramatic pictures as well.
Well, it's very interesting, because that's one of the things about these films, is that they're so extraordinarily well structured in that sense, that it's not just a so-called throwaway joke, is that there's a rhythm not only to the dramatic action but to the editing and to the returning, so everything is set up, and there's a payoff.
That's it. It's a setup and payoff. That is what movies were. That's how movies were constructed in those days, and that wasn't instant gratification. You didn't have to pay off a scene in the same scene. You paid off later. Well, you know what I mean? There was
Absolutely.
structure to it.
Structure across the entire
Movie.
Yeah. Well, I mean, one good instance of that is that this is obviously a film in which Gary Cooper and Barbara Stanwyck get top billing, and Capra holds off the introduction of the Cooper character
For quite a while.
quite a while.
Yeah.
Quite a while. I mean,
Then he gives him a hell of an entrance.
well, indeed.
That music cue and everything is quite an entrance. But you're right. It's quite a pause before he comes out. Wasn't this film released in 1941?
Yes, indeed.
So the same year, I believe, as Ball of Fire, isn't it?
Yeah.
Or was Ball of Fire the following year?
Ball of Fire is the following year. This is the same year as his girl
and Sgt York and His Girl Friday.
Yes, yeah.
God, can you imagine Cooper having two pictures like this in 1 year?
It's
You know,
that would be the peak of your career.
he won the Oscar that year, but not for Meet John Doe, but for Sgt York.
Right, indeed.
His other film that year.
Well, and it's very interesting because they're both they are both films that are about the clouds gathering in Europe, though from different directions. York is a cautionary tale about what America can do if it is forced into fighting. And of course, I'm on the boat with your parents, Peter, that this is Meet John Doe is a stunning anti-fascist film and a great cautionary tale, among the many virtues of it, about the darkness that lurks within the heart of American culture and the way in which people can be manipulated.
And I think that it's worth looking at today.
Indeed.
In terms of manipulation and the media and all the rest of it, and how the news sometimes doesn't reach you, and how it can be made to reach you in certain ways. It's very interesting, all that. And it does reverberate, I think. The other thing I think I want to be sure to mention before we have to end it is the extraordinary wealth of character actors.
Bingo, yes.
In the 30s and 40s and even into the 50s. Star character actors. I mean, Edward Arnold, who plays the heavy in this, I can't remember his name, but
D.B. Norton.
D.B. Norton, yes. Yeah. He was a star actor, and when he came on, people said, "Oh, that's great, Edward Arnold's in it,"
Right.
Or James Gleason, the editor.
Absolutely.
Jimmy Gleason, who was a wonderful actor, and so on. And there's so many of them in the picture. Walter Brennan with the helots.
Oh, absolutely. And of course, this is the golden era of Walter Brennan.
Watch out for the helots; they'll get you. Let's get out of here.
Well, let's stick with Gleason just for a second, because Gleason's character is so interesting, because you think at the beginning of the film he's the tough editor.
Yeah.
And he's a bit of the heavy, at that point, but actually, he's unquestionably a secondary character. He's nothing more, but he's a very important secondary character who actually goes through character development, a revelation about the way he, like others, has been duped, and that he may be ruthless in certain things, but he will not violate certain principles. And therefore, we get to the scene in which he's drunk.
Yes, a wonderful scene. God, he's brilliant in that scene.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's really just following your point. That's quite a distance from the beginning and the kind of comic heavy that he is there with the fast talking again, a certain kind of urban character.
There's a remarkable richness to all the supporting characters, and of course Stanwyck. They had a problem with the end of the picture. They didn't know how to end the picture. Right. They had a lot of trouble. They had several endings, and they shot a couple of different endings, I believe. And this one that you see was one that was. They thought about it. They scrapped what they had. They went back and shot it again, right. I believe. It's amazing how much the ending of the picture, this ending, relies on Barbara Stanwyck's acting ability. Indeed. Because that speech she gives is really, either the picture works on that speech or doesn't. Because that's the only thing that's going to be, they painted themselves into a corner. I mean, he had to jump, and they didn't want him to jump, so they had to figure out a way out. And the only one who could get him to stop from jumping would have to be Stanwyck. And she's just, that speech that she gives there is so moving, and she's so wonderful in it that you just say, okay, well, he couldn't possibly jump after that. But it's Barbara Stanwyck,
No, and peak time for Barbara Stanwyck as well, the late 30s, 1940s.
Yeah, when you think that the following year she did Ball of Fire, in which she plays a kind of a stripper, a singer, and the Lady Eve, which is you don't get much better than that.
No, and Double Indemnity is not.
Double Indemnity, yeah, she was an extraordinary actor.
Yeah.
And I think this part is, one of Cooper's best performances. He reads that speech on the radio wonderfully, doesn't he? Yeah. When he has to, she gives him that speech, and then the way he plays it, and the way he kind of throws it away, and he's kind of gets into it, but then he kind of throws away the ending is wonderful. Wake up, John Doe, you're the hope of the world. It's very touching.
No, indeed, and you're absolutely right. It's like it's since he is the star of the picture, it's like Gleason. It's just you think it would have just a simple entry point and exit point, and yet there's a whole charted territory in the reading of that speech. I mean, we see him. The performance allows us to almost see him thinking about, what do I think about this?
Yeah, as he's doing it. It's an amazing performance, that speech. Supposedly, Cooper was such a movie actor, such an extraordinary movie actor,
right,
that, well, Orson Welles told me that he watched Cooper shooting a close-up, and he was standing, 3 feet from him, off camera. And he said, I watched him shoot this close-up, and I swear to God, I thought, well, they're going to have to retake it. There's nothing going on there at all. And then I saw the dailies, and there was this symphony of emotion and nuance, and I thought, I didn't see any of that, and I was standing 3 steps away.
Okay.
That's a movie actor.
Yeah.
There's things that the camera picks up that Cooper does that, are so small.
Right.
And it reads so big.
Well, I think that's also, one of the reasons, among many, why the Capra films, even if there's certain aspects of a certain kind of populism that don't date well for some people, or, sometimes there have been other kinds of issues, nonetheless, the characters are so rich, not only in the dialogue and in the language, but again, just as you said this for Cooper, if you look at each of the character actors, they are fascinating to watch simply physically as film actors.
Yes, and one of the things you have to remember is that, there's no coincidence that people like Capra, Ford, Sturgis had stock companies, actors they used often. You know why? Because when they were writing the script, they could say, well, we'll have Jimmy Gleason in this part. Well, Jimmy's good at this. He can play a great drunk scene. We'll have him do this. Or, well, Jimmy wouldn't do that. Jimmy Gleason you wouldn't believe Jimmy. Let's not have him do that. So you're writing for an actor, and you know what that actor can do and what the audience will accept him to do. And that wasn't just for star actors. Of course, you say, well, that's a real good scene for Jimmy Stewart or a good scene for Gary Cooper. But it wasn't just that. It was all the supporting players as well. So you say, well, this would be good for Peter Lorre, or this would be good for Sidney Greenstreet if you're at Warner Brothers.
Right.
You know what I mean? That has disappeared. Writing for actors, and that's what erased what made it easier to erase that line between the character and the actor, which I always thought was really good acting.
Well, so did I. And one of the other things...
Well, today it isn't the same. Today you've got, everybody's acting their head off. People say, oh, it's really a great performance. Didn't you see how he was acting, I thought acting was where you didn't notice that they were acting.
Well, and let me add to that. It's also when the entire ensemble, orchestrated by the director and the script, create a complete story world that you believe in. And so one of the things about the Capra universe, and just like the Hawks universe, the Ford universe, is it's a whole story world. Once you enter that, if someone walks in the room and is going to play some role, they're one, going to have some function in the story, and two, you're going to believe in them in some way. Even if they're just a 1 or 2 dimensional character, that 1 or 2 dimensions will be so inflected that it gives you the whole notion that you believe in this city, you believe in this newspaper, you believe in the threat of D.B. Norton. because when you're in the boardroom, you've got him there, but you've got this wonderful orchestration of all the yes men corporate people around him.
Totally. I think, there's a great phrase of George Stevens, the director, who talking about Jimmy Stewart, he said, Jimmy Stewart annihilated disbelief. I love that. And I think that's what you're talking about.
Yeah.
All these actors were so close, the writing was so close to what the actors could do best that you believed it.
Absolutely.
That had an awful lot to do with it.
No. It's a kind of I hate to be legalistic, but it's a kind of contract, between the spectator and the filmmaker. I'm going to deliver a whole world to you.
Yeah, even Sourpuss, isn't there a character? That man, and it's J. Farrell McDonald, I think, is the actor. You've seen him play the bartender in about 7 zillion movies.
That's right.
Yeah. He has the great line in My Darling Clementine when Henry Fonda says to him, Mac, was you ever in love? No, sir, been a bartender my whole life. That's J. Farrell McDonald.
I must say, I was rerunning that scene through when you said bartender and him. It's one of the great.
One of the great scenes. Well, Ford and Capra were very friendly. They both were in the war together, in different areas, but they were both involved in shooting documentaries and working during World War II, and they were good friends. Ford used to speak very, very fondly of Frank Capra.
Well,
and vice versa.
Well, one of the things we haven't touched on, we just have a very, very little time left, is they're both, though in different ways, supreme visual stylists. I mean...
Yes, I think Ford more so. Ford was a poet. Capra was more of a prose artist.
Right.
But I think what they had in common was this extraordinary first-generation affection for America. One Irish, one Sicilian. It's that first-generation affection for this country that sold Americana to the world, rather than the folks that came over with them on the Mayflower. It was the ones who just arrived and said, "Yes, this is it. Let me try to get this up there, and mythologize it."
Absolutely. That is a portal we can't walk through right now, because once again, we've had 30 minutes that have rushed along, at least for me, with the, with the pace of one of these movies, I hope.
Not quite, but pretty good.
Yeah, no, I didn't.
You can't get
no, you
Capra.
can't get better. No, you can't get better than that.
Get better than
no,
Capra.
no. We can dream of it.
Yeah, that's right.
We can aspire to it. If you'd like more information about City Cinematheque, please get in touch with us. The best way to do so these days is through our website. You can find us at www.cuny.tv, or put another way, www.cuny.tv. Click on City Cinematheque and you'll find a path to communicating with us. Peter, it's a great pleasure having you here, talking about Hawks, Ford, and supremely today, Frank Capra. Look forward to having you back on City Cinematheque.
Thanks, Jerry. It's my pleasure. Thank you.
Great. Thank you for joining us today, and I hope you'll join us again when we try to explore the archives of the extraordinary history of world cinema. Bye-bye for today.